welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just. With me today is leprosy-free Mr. John Cameron. As you see him scratch his hand today, he does not have leprosy. He got bit by a wasp.
I got bit by 2 wasps, one a week ago and one yesterday.
So John is fighting with wasps these days.
Yes.
But we're just going to kind of move in because we are fighting with California state government.
Let's talk about other stinging insects, the California regulators.
Oh my God, these people they are absolutely the worst.
I'm eager to talk about this.
California regulators have passed rules limiting the tires you can buy in the future to replace your cars. They want everybody to have on these low resistance tires.
Low rolling resistance tires.
Which, quite frankly, is fine for these cars, or might be fine for these cars that have traction control and
anti-lock
brakes and all this stuff.
But it isn't fine.
But it isn't fine, especially if you have an older car with older anti-lock brakes or no traction control or any of those stuff. Now you're essentially in water. You're going to take longer to stop.
Well, the lower the rolling resistance, the less handling you have, the less stickiness on the road. So let's wonder, I don't think we need to wonder because I'm sure they didn't do it. They're trading off a tiny improvement in gas mileage for lives. Basically, mommy will be in her SUV with the 2 kids strapped in the back, and no matter how good her anti-lock brakes are and how good her high-tech car is and all the rest of that, those tires don't do good in the rain, and people driving up in the mountains, they don't do good in the snow. You know, you're going to have 2 sets of tires now, snow tires to drive up in the mountains. So it's going to be a boon to snow tire salespeople and people who put snow tires on cars. But it's going to mean that insurance rates are going to go up. There's going to be more wrecks, and on and on and on, because they only thought about, as the state of California does, one thing that they've already done a pretty good job of throttling back our ability to drive anywhere quickly, because they want all cars to get wonderful gas mileage. Yeah.
Well, I actually think this is worse, John. I think they're just deliberately trying to make driving more expensive so poor people can't drive. Now, they actually don't care if it's poor people, middle class people, or rich people. They don't want people driving. And they want people on their bicycles or their buses or someplace they can be controlled.
Or a high-speed rail.
Yeah, they want them in their 15-minute cities, and ultimately that's the long-term goal of this. But here's the thing, we're close enough to Tahoe or Reno, we can just drive up to Nevada, get your tires, and come back down. Why would you do anything different? I mean, if you're anywhere remotely near a border.
Well, don't mention that on the air, because the next step will be that if your car is registered in the state of California, you can't buy tires out of state.
Well, but that's constitutional, interstate commerce. You can't. They can't pull that one off. But
you might be right, because people buy cars out of state so that they have less emission control devices on them. They're still very, very, very clean, and then register them in the state of California. So you could be right.
Yeah. So but the problem is California's market is so big that we end up distorting the market in the rest of the country.
Yes.
And so that's part of the problem.
No, I don't have leprosy. I got bit by some bugs. Yeah.
So as we said, but
they're
that's
not
the problem.
fleas either.
This is the problem, John. I really think that the ultimate goal of this thing is just like they did in Denmark, is they made driving expensive and a royal pain in the butt, so nobody does it.
But in Denmark, they have infrastructure. Being an old country, they have buses and trams and trains. We don't have those things here, at least in California.
Well, because we don't want them. We want our cars.
We want our cars. We want our cars.
And if we wanted buses, we'd be having buses.
The other thing is that I'm guessing that electric vehicles, being much, much heavier, I don't know if they'll be exempt, but they put much more weight on the road. So perhaps they're not as affected by the low rolling resistance tires thing.
Well, that's what they invented the low rolling resistance tires for. Yeah. Is for the electric cars.
Okay. And I made my point. Just pull that one right out of thin air.
It's going to be crazy. The problem is it doesn't allow us to choose. You know, I do a lot of driving in wet areas. I need tires that are stickier, right? Or you know what? I live in the desert. I can go ahead and have low rolling resistance tires because, you know, I'm on flat land that never rains. It's perfectly fine. But even on those conditions, stickier tires are going to stop you 10 feet faster.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I wonder what the actual number is, low rolling. I only asked Google the quick question.
well, and the
which
thing is, these
was,
tires are also more expensive, and they don't last as long. So you're going to be buying tires more often.
So maybe it's the tire industry lobby that's pushing this. Somebody is, because it doesn't make sense. I mean, why trade a minuscule improvement in gas mileage, and they're talking about savings for
Yeah, it's like
California
$74 a
consumers.
year or something like that.
Something like that, right? Versus greater insurance costs, more deaths, more wrecks.
Higher tire costs,
Yeah.
higher replacement costs. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. All right, John, we're going to move on to what is a sad but interesting conversation. The tragedy of Jason Arday, and I want to focus on his enablers. You know, I'm less concerned. A man has passed away. I don't like talking ill about the dead.
Yeah.
But a man built his life on a house of cards, and he was not going to be able to do it without a large group of people enabling him.
Massive group of people, and they're still trying to blame other people for his death. Yeah, they're trying to blame the media that went after him. They're trying to blame people who held him to a standard, as if he shouldn't be held to a standard. They're trying to blame everybody but the people that we're blaming, which are those people who allowed someone to be in a position without checking his credentials, without looking at the quality of his work, without examining his bio like they would for other people, because they held him in a special class of people that they consider to be inferior, who need to have different standards. And in doing that, they put him in a position where he was doomed to fail, and fail miserably, which he did.
When you build your life on a house of cards, at some point a wind is going to come by and blow it down. And he was not prepared. And sadly, he was not prepared to deal with that. Right? This is a human tragedy. Anytime someone feels the need to take their own life, it's a human tragedy. Right? Regardless of the circumstances. Well, mostly. But that's a human tragedy. No one wants to see a guy die because he lied. You know, because he exaggerated his life's journey. It's a silly price to pay. But at the same time, the people who are responsible for him being in that position are the people who need to be held accountable.
Yes. And it's not the people who point out that the enablers enabled. They're not the evil people here, because they're trying to blame the press.
Yeah, they're trying to blame the press. They're trying to blame everybody but themselves.
Yeah.
They're refusing to look in the mirror.
And we're actually, this subject is carried on in the next week's show.
Yeah,
as well.
it pops up again because it's a lot of people are trying to make political hay, cultural hay out of this, and the reality is a man has passed away because his house of cards fell apart, and there's people responsible for it. But it's the people who held those cards up that we should be questioning, not the people who, you know, dared to take a look at those cards and say, hey, this is a flimsy house.
It's a little flimsy. Yeah, I wouldn't be on the second floor of this baby.
You don't blame the home inspector, right, for discovering that your roof leaks, that there's a hole in your roof, right? You blame the guy who built the roof. It's sad, John, and that's
yes, it is.
That's kind of where I'm going to end on this one.
No, I agree.
All right, so we've got Mr. Richard Fields talking about our Democrat socialist friends. So let's see what Mr. Richard Fields has to say today.
Hi, this is Richard Fields with this week's report from the fields. What's going on in Wisconsin? The last 5 polls for the Democratic Party nominee for governor had Democratic Socialist of America State Representative Francesca Hong with a lead in the last 5 published polls of almost 23%. Instead, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley won the primary by a few thousand votes. And he had suspended his campaign and endorsed another candidate who dropped out of the race because of scandal. He only got back in the race with the endorsement of Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers in the last few weeks before Election Day. Is this the end of the rise of the Democratic Socialists who have won congressional primaries in New York, Colorado, Michigan, not to mention the Ma'am Demi, the mayoral win in New York City? Unfortunately, probably not. Importantly, Hong did not receive the endorsement of Democratic Socialist luminaries like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Elizabeth Warren. Their excuse was that they were more concerned with congressional races than gubernatorial races. Maybe. Or maybe they figured Hong would lose to the Republican when voters learned she had earlier expounded not only on abolishing police and prisons, but also Thanksgiving. Those are positions that democratic socialists are trying to bury as youthful, misplaced idealism. What is certain is that most Democrats, a majority of independents, and even a plurality of Republicans wanted to make sure a Trump-endorsed candidate did not win. The Trump-endorsed candidate, Tom Tiffany, had no significant opposition in his primary. Wisconsin has an open primary, which means that Republicans and independents can cross over and vote in the Democratic primary. That probably happened. In addition, the turnout of young voters was lower than expected. What's undeniable is that the young and some not so young voters are looking beyond traditional Democrats and Republicans. And of course, they should be. Ever since the 1970s, taxes have gone up significantly higher than wages. The reason for that is that ever since Nixon, by executive action, took us off the gold standard, the monetary policy of the United States has effectively been to counterfeit enough new dollars to cover overspending by Congress. That free pass on spending has made it possible to fund LBJ's war on poverty, the Republicans' war on drugs, the Greens' war on pollution, animal lovers' protection of endangered species, the Department of Education, endless kinetic foreign wars of choice, and Obamacare, just to name a few. That has significant effects. Increased money supply means the price of assets has gone up dramatically. This helps the owners of assets. It makes them comparatively richer and makes them the target of envy. Those of us without significant assets are seeing our standard of living go down. People are in their 20s and 30s live at home because they can't afford to rent, even with roommates. Forget about buying a home. The cost of health care has risen faster than overall inflation due to federal subsidies to health care, like Medicare, Medicaid, and Obamacare, increasing demand. Meanwhile, supply is constricted by onerous medical licensing laws and certificate of need, CON laws, which effectively give existing hospitals veto power over competing hospitals being built. The cost of higher education has gone up due to unlimited college loans. Never mind that they are not dischargeable in bankruptcy if the degree is not marketable. The Department of Education and the insatiable demands of teachers' unions have driven up the cost of elementary and high school education, primarily by increasing local property taxes. The middle class is disappearing. The working class is struggling and watching the rich get richer. This is fertile ground for socialists. It facilitates the politics of envy. Soak the rich, Medicare, and eventually everything one could possibly need or want for everyone. Left unchecked, it leads to an equality of impoverishment for everyone except the apparatchiks who run the system. Zimbabwe, Peronist Argentina, and Venezuela are the roadmap. In Nicaragua, the people elected socialist Daniel Ortega. He just abolished any further elections and is busy jailing his political rivals. If left unchecked, that's where democratic socialism goes. And let's face it, socialism is just a marketing term for communism. Look no further than Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot and the tens of millions they killed or let starve to see where communism goes. However, all hope is not lost. Republican and mostly libertarian Thomas Massie recently lost a congressional primary that was overwhelmingly funded by AIPAC and other Trump allies. But he won in every demographic under 50. His loss was a result of oldsters believing that everything Fox said on their TV box, libertarians can and must listen to what younger voters have to say and show how libertarians have not nostrums, but solutions to the challenges they face. That's this week's Report from the Fields. See you again next week.
Because it was about 3 in 1.
Thank you, Richard. yeah, Richard had a couple Richard from the Fields in that one. He melded. He could have cut 2 or 3 from the Fields out of that. But it is the rise, fall, or not. I don't think any of us can really tell. I suspect they don't have much more than what 25% is probably their tip of the socialist, the actual genuine socialist.
We're going to talk about the DSA here pretty quick. The problem is that I heard of a poll. I haven't read the poll because I want to pull apart the questions in the poll. That more than half of Democrats believe that socialism is better than capitalism.
Oh, I have no doubt about that.
So the problem with that is that most of them work in make-believe jobs, government jobs, right? Which probably 80% of them could be shut down. They work for NGOs, nonprofits. They work in schools. They work in all the heavily regulated government-supported institutions, healthcare, schools, government, and all the rest of that. So of course they have to believe in it because they're living it, But the idea that anybody who's ever read a history book, except for the ones they're making up out of thin air now, cannot understand that. I just talk about it real quick. There's a British comedian, and I can't remember his name, who came up with the best line I've heard about socialism. Somebody was ragging on him in the audience and said, well, define socialism. So he defined it communism. He defined communism. And he said basically it's socialism. And he said the problem with it is that everybody's a socialist in their family. I mean, Richard has said this many times. But once you expand it to the village, it doesn't work. And nationwide, everybody just says, the heck with those people, right? He said, it's not scalable. Socialism and communism are not scalable. You have to do it in your household because infants don't have any means of production. They can't go out and earn the money. You have to support them. Yeah. And history has shown that in every single case.
Yeah, well,
every single
The reason it really fails is the attempt to control culture and the economy through a centralized anything.
Well, no centralized command works.
It's going to fail at scale, right?
Yeah.
It just will. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on, John. The DSA is performing what we call the devil's trick, right? They get to go up. They go to stand on the politician who's part of the DSA. He gets to go up to a porch. He gets to talk about the kitchen table issues, right? He doesn't have to talk about the fact that they want to completely, essentially rewrite the Constitution, reformulate our whole government,
eliminate the Senate, eliminate the Electoral College, eliminate the Supreme Court, have direct representation, right? And on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't talk about that. And when they're asked questions about their platform, they don't ever answer them. Yeah.
Now here's the thing: as a politician who's run for the Libertarian Party platform, I've had to do that. I don't pay any attention to the party platform when I ran. Right? I wasn't running on the party platform. I was running on my own, and so in a sense, this is something that all politicians have to deal with, at a sense, right? Because let's be honest, platforms are political hacks. They're documents meant for the political hacks. I call it activist porn.
Activist porn. I like that.
Political platforms are activist porn. It's porn for the activists, and the politicians and the rank and file don't care about it, right? They don't even read it.
Well, and also politicians lie.
Yeah.
They run on one platform. Look at the platform that Franklin Delano Roosevelt ran on, the Great Socialist. It was smaller government, lower taxes, less government intervention, and when he got into power, what did he do? Basically took a recession, There was a depression for about 18 months or 2 years in the rest of the world, and through his policies, extended it to almost 10 years by government intervention. And he was hailed as a hero. Whereas in other countries that basically had the same thing going on, they didn't do that kind of government intervention, and within a few years they were out of the Great Depression. It was only the Great Depression in the United States of America. So, but he ran on a small government ticket. So you got to watch out.
Yeah, well,
maybe these DSA folks, once they're actually elected, they'll turn into the next Rand Paul.
Yeah, they'll turn into the next Pol Pot is what they'll turn into the next to.
That was good. That was quick.
All right, so we're gonna move. Fauci's ex-advisor, his main advisor, pled guilty to plotting to hide the COVID-19 research. This is something we've all known has been happening, right? We all knew it, especially when Fauci went there and did his 110 or whatever it was.
No comment.
No comments, or plead the fifth.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, his advisor pled guilty to, I was deliberately hiding evidence that you were actually looking for.
The government does this all the time.
Yeah.
They intentionally misspell things, because when somebody fills out a FOIA request, that is a computer search. Nobody goes through the emails like.
Yeah, these subject lines and
They do a search, and so it's looking for keywords. And so what the government does is they misspell keywords, or they use a word that sort of is tangentially related to the word, but it doesn't. So this is just normal.
Yeah, it was like they redefined gain of function, so they could not. So what was gain of function research? Wasn't gain of function research? They just declared it as, we're going to call it something else, so it's not gain of function. Yeah. These people are corrupt. We've known they're corrupt, and this is a domino that fell. But we're not going to get enough.
No,
we're never going to get enough dominoes falling to actually understand what happened.
And nobody will take responsibility for it. They won't say, we shouldn't have done it. What they do is just like the people about woke. They're just moving on. Oh yeah, it's because of COVID. Well, that's ridiculous.
Which is actually our next topic here. Woke one was just crazy, according to
I didn't even mean
AOC.
to do the segue, man.
That was a nice, brilliant segue there, John. But AOC, in an interview, said woke one was crazy. There's two problems with this, which means she knows there's a woke two coming. Because she wouldn't have called it woke one if there is not another one coming. It's just wokeness went crazy. And so it's
because of COVID and the lockdowns and the unemployment and the race problems, and that's what woke was a response to that. And
no, woke was there before all that.
Yeah. Because she's lying. Because she's a politician.
Yeah.
She's a socialist.
That allowed woke to explode.
That woman has crazy eyes. I mean, you look at her.
Well, she's the leading Democrat.
She got crazy eyes.
She's the leading Democrat candidate right at the moment, according to polling. And however polling is, as we know, polling is not very good. I don't trust any polls. But so.
Well, I trust Gallup, and Gallup no longer polls presidential elections.
They've gotten it so wrong.
I think they got them wrong for a reason, and we don't want to go into conspiracy theories now, but one of these days somebody's going to write a book about what happened in the 2020 election and why Gallup's polls, up until that point, their political polls were spot on. So we'll find out 10 years from now, 20
years from now, yeah. All right, so there was an article, John, in Reason that is claiming Trump's dictator envy is once again on display in this tiff with South Korea. I think they're over-exaggerating this.
Well, Reason will occasionally write an article about all the good stuff that Trump has done, like get rid of $1 trillion worth of regulations, And I know when Elon was running that program to find fraud and inefficiency in government, our friend Richard Field says, there's no way they can find $1 trillion. They found $1 trillion. It's just the government wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, they won't do anything about it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
But this thing about one, I don't think Trump actually cares about dictators or not. This is all about South Korea, and Trump gets his feelings hurt. It takes more than one thing. It's a combination of things for Trump to get all bent out of shape and said, well, now I'm going to show you that I'm bent out of shape by pulling out of part of our exercises. I don't know. I don't find these things. Don't put any much stock into these type of things.
And then also the thing about the Donald. That's what some people they call him in England. The right-wing people in England they affectionately call him the Donald, like the king. At least they did when I was there 3 or 4 years ago. And he does the shiny object thing. Trump. People say Trump doesn't have a plan, and he shoots from the hip. And he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that, and all the rest of that. That man he might be crazy, and he is probably crazy, and we know he's a liar, but
he's a braggart and a liar. This is nothing new.
He shiny object, and people go chasing it, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks from then, he does something quasi-intelligent.
And it may be an excuse to pull this stuff out and send it to the Middle East rather than in South Korea. Who knows what the actual plan is? Again, just because it's the loud part is not what you want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a minute and a half, John, so we're going to run through this. Karen Bass has been ripped for a viral video that she laid out how she gets taxpayer-funded campaign donations, essentially. She gets a 6-to-1 contributions. You give her $1 because she's qualified. You give her $1 and the government gives her $6. LA County gives her $6.
Well,
it's insane.
How about we do it the other way? If she gets $5 million in donations, take half of it and give it to homeless people directly as cash. Let's do that.
Let's do that instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
The problem
the
problem with these public financing is that people like Karen Bass who don't need the money get it, and the neighborhood. The guy who's fed up with the world, doesn't have any real money to run a campaign, gets nothing. And that's the people who should get it, not the professional politicians.
And to make your point, to qualify, a candidate must have 300 times the matchable amount per contributor, $257, and have 100 donors who have contributed $5 or more, and must have an opponent and had a town hall debate. Who's that aimed at? That's aimed at people who are part of the system.
All right, thank you, John. We are out of time. Thank you for being here. Thank the crew for working so hard. We greatly appreciate you, but most importantly, we appreciate you for watching every week. Have a good night, and please remember to love everybody.
Ditto.